Hi, it's Anastasia here, and in this video I'm going to give a little brief introduction to continuo playing on the harpsichord. When one usually thinks of continuo, one's thoughts always automatically go to the realization, how to play those chords on top of that bass line. But this isn't the focus of this video. I will be making other videos on realization based on the different national styles, so do not worry. I will get to that, but in this video I just want to talk about just the basics of being a good continuo player that applies to any style at all. And in fact, a teacher of mine once said that having a good realization is actually only half the job. The other half is actually playing your realization well. And so this is what this video is going to be focused on. And so the first thing to remember when playing continuo is that your left hand is the most important voice, and it's really hard, especially in the early stages when you're trying to get your right hand used to extemporizing and reading chords spontaneously, and it's easy for our concentration to just drift to what the right hand's doing. But that actually creates an imbalance because Baroque music is incredibly bass driven, and in fact all the entire foundation of the music is driven by the bass. The bass line contains all the harmonic foundation for the music, and it's actually the engine that drives the music. And so all the phrasing that needs to happen in the music as a whole, in the ensemble music as a whole, has to be audible in the left hand alone. And in fact, the more the left hand, your left hand is can be relied on by the ensemble to drive the music forward, the less the solo, the melody instruments will feel this pressure to drive the ensemble along and pull us, drag us along, and they can be free to take time and be as expressive as they want. So in fact, being a continuo player is not so much being an accompanist, but being the as it were, the silent conductor that's holding everyone together and giving direction to the music, and actually not just following the soloist, but creating the foundation such that the soloist will land where the music, where the bass line wants them to land, and anticipating their needs and meeting them right when they need it. And that's why being a continuo player is just such a great foundation and great training grounds for any kind of accompaniment. Play continuo for a few years and you get thrown to doing a Schubert lieder, or even accompanying a musical theater piece or a pop piece, and you'll find that you're just a much better collaborator. And so that's the first thing that's important. Always lead with your left hand. And actually, in terms of weighting, you want to think almost forte with your left hand and pianissimo with your right hand, because your right hand is really only providing the filling. It's the harmonic filling, and providing the harmony for what the bass is actually being the foundation of. So left hand's important, right hand, left hand forte, right hand piano. The second most important thing, let me sit down at the harpsichord here, for a continuo player is to have as many different kinds of arpeggios as possible, because what the best realizations are actually realizations that have good voice leading full chords and that have been arpeggiated in as many different ways as possible. And I know that sometimes people tend to overdo their realization a bit and add all these flourishes which they think makes the music sound exciting. But in fact, flourishes are all well and good, but you often have to reduce the number of voices in your chords in order to do all those flourishes. And sometimes if you do them at a time that's not appropriate, they just get lost in what the melody voice is doing. And so and the harpsichord cannot ring that way, because when playing continuo, you almost want to produce a nice cushion of sound from which the solo voice can emerge, and that cushion of sound becomes the most resonant and supportive when you just simply stick to chords that have good voice leading, so the overtones of the harpsichord of the notes they use overlap in a way that produces maximum resonance. And usually flourishes are only used in between phrases and for very very particular kinds of imitation, in, for example, in Italian continuo. But that's beyond the scope of this video. But I did want to say that good chords with the correct doublings and the correct voice leadings with very beautiful arpeggios are what can make the difference between good continuo playing and just not great continuo playing. And unfortunately, it is the lot of the continuo player that when you do your job well, the soloist sounds absolutely gorgeous and sounds better than ever before, and they don't actually notice you that much, but the listener only notices the continuo player when they don't do their job very, very well. So that's our lot in life. But anyway, coming back to arpeggios, so the first thing is to have as many different kinds of arpeggios as possible, because there'll be different kinds of impulses that you need to give to the ensemble, depending on tempo or affect, and you want to have as many speeds and moods in your arpeggios as possible. And the second most important thing is to always make sure that as you're arpeggiating, you do a decrescendo towards the top. I know, especially on the piano, there's because we're so especially when we get locked in this sort of melody and accompaniment mentality, there's a tendency to just sort of land on the top of the arpeggio in a heap, and just have all your impulse just going right into that top note. And actually, this can be very detrimental to continuo playing, because what that does is, because the beat falls on where the bass note is, if you roll towards the top and land in a heap on the top note of the arpeggio, it produces an accent that is slightly off the beat, and that can really throw your ensemble for a loop. So instead of you want to produce an arpeggio that is always does a decrescendo towards the top. So as opposed to, imagine if I'm going, it's hard to feel where is the beat here or here, whereas if you just lead with your left hand, we know exactly where the beat is, and after that it's just a carpet of sound with no impulses. So I'm going to play a little bit from Bach's sonata for violin and solo instrument and harpsichord and basso continuo, BWV 1021, and I'm just going to play the left hand for you first, just to show how much shaping needs to happen at just the bass level. Now I'm going to put in my right hand, and my focus is still going to be on the left hand. And just notice how I'm trying to make the phrasing of the whole ensemble apparent just in my continuo line. I'm pushing towards the middle of the phrase and relaxing at the cadence and arpeggiating accordingly. And so we want everything that the continuo player is doing to be not only conducting with the bass line, but to also be a microcosm of what's happening as a whole. So that's all for now. Please stay tuned for my upcoming videos on how to realize basso continuo based on the different national styles.